there friends, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some little habits and lifestyle changes that I have made that help me save at least 25% of my income. Now, if you're new here, hi, my name is Kallie Branciforte, and the Cliff Notes version of my financial story is that in 2016, my husband and I were over $70,000 in debt between student loans, car payments, credit cards, and we finally buckled down. We got smart with our money and we paid off almost all of our debt in just 1 year. And we've since saved for the down payment on our home that we currently have, become parents, continue to live debt-free, minus the mortgage on this house, which is our next big to-do. Now, none of this would have been possible if we hadn't made some smart financial changes, including some smart financial habits that we adopted. So today I'm going to share those with you. All right, habit number one is to get into the habit of tracking your spending totally judgment-free. And the reason I say judgment-free is because if you've never closely tracked exactly where all of your money is going, we can sometimes tend to get a little defensive over our purchases, trying to justify each thing that we bought. It's not always easy to sort of sit back and admit to some of the things we bought, because sometimes we know that we're buying things that aren't always smart. But our goal here is to be able to look at our money in a completely judgment-free zone. The point is not to say, oh my God, what did you do? Why did you buy that? But instead to say, okay, I see overspent in this category, and how can I avoid this next time? Okay, so how does this work? Well, you need a way to track your income coming in. Now, I've used the Quicken app in the past. However, I'm currently in the market for something else to use because I don't really love this app. If you have one you love, let me know in the comments down below. Typically, these apps have a very small cost of a couple dollars a month, and considering using them to budget saves me hundreds, it is so worth it. What the apps do is they're gonna pull in all of your income and all of your spending, and they make it really easy for you to organize that spending into categories. Now, yes, you can't do this manually, but it's going to be like a really big time suck, which means you're going to be a lot less likely to stick with it because it's gonna take a ton of time. Now, I really suggest that you break these down into smaller categories. Don't just say food. Break it out into coffee shops, restaurants, dining out restaurants, and takeout restaurants, maybe bars. Even consider adding some other categories if it makes sense for you, like specialty food shops. Don't have a category that just says Amazon, right? Break it out. What was the Amazon purchase for? Was it clothing, self-care, pet supplies, kids' toys? If you're too broad with your categorizing of your budget, it's going to be way too hard to see where your money blunders really are. Once you have all of your spending organized, it becomes just a lot easier to really see where your money is going. When you first start, I suggest that you check in with this at least once a week at minimum. Over time, you should be able to do this a little less as your spending habits improve. But trust me, when you really sit back and you look at your spending in a totally judgment-free way, it can be eye-opening. You might immediately see places that you are way overspending that you hadn't realized. Or maybe you hadn't wanted to admit that you were overspending there, even though you maybe had a little inkling. It just makes it impossible not to face your spending when you do it this way. And listen, just that in of itself can be the inspiration and the motivation that you need to cut back. But more likely, it's going to create a realistic look at your current spending so you can set realistic goals for budgeting. And once you've set a budget, you can then easily see if you're on track or not. All right, the next habit is just get really aggressive about cutting things from your budget that don't really need to be there. Like I said earlier, we're gonna look at our budget, we're gonna look at where we're overspending, we're gonna do it totally judgment-free, and then you want to challenge yourself to see where you can cut things from your budget, because spending on things is a habit, and instead we want the habit to be, where can I cut back? So for us, a really big one was definitely eating out. Dining out is a huge, huge expense. So learning how to eat out way less has saved us so much on our budget. I will actually link a video down below. It's like 15 or 20 things or 13 things. I don't remember how many things that I cut from my budget that I do not miss. And that'll give you a whole list of ways and things that we cut from our budget that save us tons of money every single month. Okay, next is get into the habit of setting goals. So, one, you need monthly budgeting goals. These are made after you've done step one, you've really looked at your budget, and you've decided where you want to cut back. But listen, the most important part of this habit is not to just get in the habit of setting goals, but to get in the habit of setting attainable goals. To me, saving money is like a diet. Most fad diets don't work because they're too extreme to stick with, and people just do it for a couple weeks or maybe a few months if they're lucky, and then it falls off. Money is the exact same way. Don't say you're going to spend $400 on groceries if you're currently spending $800. Start with a more attainable baby step. Maybe cut down by 15% the first month, and when you do that, cut by 15% more the next month. If you're currently eating out 5 times a week and it's killing your budget, try cutting it down to 3 times a week at first, and then cut it down to 2 times. Setting attainable goals means you are setting yourself up for success. If you make too lofty of a goal, like a diet, it's very unlikely you're going to stick to it, and then when you don't succeed, you're going to be left feeling defeated and less likely to stick with any budgeting altogether. Now, along with my monthly goals, I also highly suggest having a few really big overarching goals. These are goals that inspire us to cut back on spending and save because they give us something to work towards. Sometimes just spending less in a certain category isn't really quite enough motivation. Like, sure, I want to cut back my grocery spending, but like what's really in it for me? We need a bigger carrot on a stick. So maybe it's a vacation you really want to take. Maybe you have a credit card or student loan or car payment you really want to pay off. Maybe it's a home project, a room renovation. What is your big carrot on a stick? Then I suggest you create some type of visual representation of that with progress markers. Hang it up in your house somewhere so it is a constant reminder of what you're working towards. This is something we literally do in our house, and it totally works. As you get closer, you can start to mark off the progress you've made, and I find this works really well because, one, we tend to be really visual creatures, so the visual reminder each day reminds us what our goal is, helps it stay top of mind, so that when we might consider skipping on our budget, we remember not to. And the visual aspect of seeing you get closer and closer to your goal is extremely motivating. It's sort of like how crossing things off our to-do list feels so good. Getting to move up a marker on your little progress chart instills optimism, and it's like a little personal victory. Get the sense and the feeling that the efforts you're putting in for budgeting and cutting back are actually doing something. Next up is more of sort of like a lifestyle change, and that is getting in the habit of staying in my own lane. So what exactly do I mean by this? Well, it's really easy to be influenced by what other people are doing, and that influence can then cause us to spend money, right? We see people buying new this or new that. We see people going on vacation. We see other people eating out. They're having fun at restaurants. They're going out tons of times a week. You really have to focus on not focusing on that and instead staying in your own lane and thinking about the choices that are right for you and your family when it comes to money. Everyone has a different story when it comes to their money. We might look at somebody on the surface level and say, well, I don't know, they make about the same money I do. I should be able to do the things that they're doing. But there's so much more that's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Maybe they have overwhelming debt supporting this. Maybe they got a big bonus at work. Maybe they get financial support from a family member. Maybe they were really strict with money for lots of years, and so now they have no debt and they have more financial freedoms. Maybe. My point is, you don't know other people's financial situations, and so you need to not let their financial choices impact yours. Don't ever compare your financial journey or choices to someone else's. Stay in your own lane and focus on you. Make choices based on your finances. All right, the next habit is to work on avoiding lifestyle inflation. Now, what is lifestyle inflation? Well, if you don't know, what it means is as your income increases, maybe you got a raise, you moved up in your company, you paid off your debt, whatever, many of us tend to then increase our lifestyle to meet our increased income. And while some lifestyle inflation totally makes sense and it's gonna happen, it also can put us at risk of going in this hamster wheel of never having enough money. People who make $500,000 a year can inflate their lifestyle so much that even they feel like they're on this hamster wheel. So my best tip for this is to work on living below your means. The goal is never to try to inflate your lifestyle so that you're living at the very top of your budget and your income. You don't want to create a monthly budget that leaves you at net zero. You don't want to buy or rent a home at the top of your budget. So an example of this is when my husband and I bought our home, we bought it on one of our incomes. Sure, we could have combined our incomes, got a way bigger house, got a really nice updated kitchen, but buying on one income now gives us so much more financial freedom and safety, which to us is worth way more than some more square feet in our house. So if you want to think about it as two bubbles, this should be your income and this should be your lifestyle. And this can sort of be a hard one because as we're making more money, we kind of do that whole like, well, I deserve it thing, right? I treat yourself, I've been working hard, I make more money, I should get something nicer. But it becomes this balancing act of not inflating it so much that your two bubbles are exactly the same. All right, moving right along, the next habit is to learn how to be more patient with your money. What do I mean? Well, we live in a world where it's really easy to buy things. even if we don't actually have the money for it. We use credit cards or finance things. That, along with how easy it is to buy things with like one-step purchasing on Amazon and phones that save our credit card info, this has led us all to become very accustomed to wanting instant gratification when it comes to purchasing something. So how can you learn to be more patient with your money in a world like this? Well, in general, skip credit cards and anything financed. Now, yes, I do have credit cards. I use them to make secure purchases online. I use them to get the points, but I do not use them if I do not have the exact money I'm spending on my credit card currently in my bank account. Getting in the habit of using your credit card as like your main source of purchasing is just going to give you a false sense of how much money you really have. It doesn't always feel like you're spending real money when you don't see it coming out of your bank account. When we actually first started to super buckle down on our budgeting, we actually stuck with straight up cash for as much as we could because it gives you a far more realistic idea how much money you actually have and are spending. We also never justify making big purchases on credit cards. We always wait until we have the actual cash in our account to buy an item. Yes, this does mean that sometimes we have to be more patient for things. We have to wait until we've accrued enough money in our actual bank account to buy something. We don't just use our credit card to purchase it because the credit card is there. So it's about being patient with our money. And this also goes for anything financed or that could carry interest. In the moment, it might seem like really not that big of a deal to split up payments into installments when you buy something new. But the way that I like to look at something financed is if I can't afford to buy it full price right now, I can't afford it. It's so much better to hold out, be patient, save the money yourself, and then buy it when you have the actual cash. And worse off, if there's any interest on an item, even if it's like 1%, it's still 1%, right? You're not getting that money back. You might as well just light some money on fire every few days. My very final habit is we now live debt-free. Like I said at the beginning of this video, when you have debt, that's money that is not your money, right? You always owe someone else money, and worst of all, you're almost always paying interest on that, which again is just like lighting money on fire. So, like I said earlier in this video, before we had kids, we paid off all our debt. Was it really hard to do it? Yes, it was at first, but once you get into the habit of it, you adopt some of these habits, it becomes easier and easier. It was about making some lifestyle changes like this that have helped us save money. I can't tell you how good it feels when the money you make is actually your money. Besides, of course, the taxes that the government's gonna take off the top, but that's a discussion for another day. Now, if you need some resources on this, I have a few blog posts that I will link down below, including how we paid off our debt, how we stay debt-free, and how we prevent overspending so that we don't end up back in debt. All right, my friends, that does it for this video. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found it helpful. I will link some of those other resources that I talked about down below, as well as some other money-saving videos that might help you as well. But I appreciate you stopping by and watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you all in my next video.